Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to go over one of our newer products, which is the 9365 conveyor. We've been using this product for a lot of downlines now. It's deemed as a light contact product, um, and it's becoming a widely more popular choice when it comes to using downlines or accumulation. So a lot of the things in the application guide on our website are not routinely updated, and Maestro is up to date. I've been working with some of the Maestro team to make sure all the right features are implemented and the costs are reflected. And in this video, we're going to go over basically when you're using 9365, a lot of the things you need to look out for and consider when you're costing. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring in a straight section of 9365, and we're going to make this a little bit bigger. And let's go through the options here. Now, when you're looking at your motor vendor, we are working with the vendor to come up with a direct drive solution. By direct drive, it's going to eliminate some of the components and it's going to make the overall cost of this thing cheaper. Right now, that's not implemented, so it does not matter which motor vendor you choose. It's not going to affect the cost. It's just there for information for the next person who opens it up. When you look at your roller centers, now this is an important one because if you notice the cost up here, the 3780, and we go ahead and we open up our roller centers to 125, you notice now the cost goes down, which makes sense, right? Less rollers. However, on this product, the rollers are more expensive than the typical roller that we would use in a 9265, which also plays a role into your coating. Now, if you notice, the coated rollers significantly increase the price. On this particular random length, it's about $1,000. That's because the rollers are approximately $4 or a little more than $4 per roller to have them coated. So when you're designing your conveyor, you want to make sure that your roller centers are right, and if you're using a coated or non-coated, which also plays into your zone length. Now, 875 is a typical 3-foot zone. The sensors on 9365 are roughly $40 a piece. In comparison, the 9265 sensors are about $7 a piece. So you want to make sure you're using the right zone length, or your cost could be way off when it comes to if you have a lot of conveyor, you're going to have way more cost in there, or even way less cost if your zone lengths are not right because of the sensors. Now, Dematic legal team has given us direction on where they feel comfortable at using non-coated rollers for declines. Now, it's not reflected in our application guide, but is reflected in Maestro. So what I'm going to go ahead here is I'm going to make this elevation 10 foot. And if you notice, I can go ahead and change the angle of my conveyor. Now, -5 degrees is a rule of thumb that we use when we say, okay, we don't want to go more than 5 degrees with non-coated rollers. The legal team has set the limit at 10 degrees. So if you go to 10 degrees on this, you're going to notice Maestro is going to automatically change your rollers to coat. Now, that's where they feel comfortable when they say, okay, you can use uncoated rollers to 10 degrees. And then at 10 degrees, it's going to automatically force you to go to coated rollers, and it's not going to give you an option to uncoat them. I don't go less than 5 with coated, or more than 5, because you can. It's for me, it's my comfort spot to do uncoated rollers. Now, when you go with the predefined declines here, you're going to notice it's going to come in as a coated roller. And when you're working with the coated rollers here, put this in single select, you want, again, it's very important to make sure your zone lengths are right and your centers are right, because that could drastically affect the cost, which the 9365 is inherently more expensive than our 9265. The thing with the declines on the 9365, if you're going directly to a trailer loader, you can remove the power tail. And we've had this feature added where you can go ahead and take off the power tail. When you take the power tail off, it leaves the nose over, right? Or you can remove the nose over and add the power tail if you want to. But this can go directly to a trailer loader, You don't need the power tail on it. If you want a coated charge bed, you can do that. It's just the way the model is right now, but typically we don't need that. I'll go ahead and shorten this up so it doesn't look like that. And okay, so now we have, this is essentially a typical downlane that we would do. Again, keep in mind the angle, the zone lengths, the sensors. It's very important that everything matches, because if you notice, we're at $8,000 here, but if we start going in and changing these things to, let's say, that's a standard 875, and we're going to go with all coated rollers, you see the price can just keep going up. Or if you have a shorter zone, you see now it goes significantly up. So you just want to make sure you are using the right zone lengths and the right angles and the right rollers when you are designing this. Again, I would not go more than 5. Maestro lets you go 10 per the legal team's suggestion, but 5 degrees is what I would recommend. The other thing to note when you are designing 9365 is that it's air powered. So when you're designing these, you have to factor in hooking up the air and making sure that the airlines are there. There will be a pressure drop in the system, so you have to make sure that the customer knows that we're not responsible for their building air if there's a pressure drop, or if you need to install more air to power these things. It should be a one-to-one motor swap if they already have powered takeaway lines. But if they have a gravity takeaway line, obviously you're going to have to factor in putting 2 motors in there to power the 9365. Other than that, the installation is almost identical to a 9265 downlane. The controls is identical. There are, basically blade stops that come up that can control the gravity. We've done extensive testing on the 9365. You can stop the boxes and the light contact of the rollers, and it's overall a much better product than a standard gravity line, but it is more expensive, and we have to take into account all these options when we are designing these, to make sure that we are coming up with a cost-effective solution. 9265 is not as sensitive to changes as the 9365 is, and it's important just to realize that when you're dealing with the 9365, you have a lot more to look out for and a lot more to account for when you're not just drawing it in Maestro, but even the installation and controls process, especially the installation with the building air and the wiring of the motors, making sure that, if you're going from gravity to 9365, there has to be a power source there, so you have to take into account control cabinets. And that's about all. I mean, this was just a high-level overview of the 9365 product. As always, if you have any more questions, please reach out, and I hope this helps.